A warm welcome to One Slot. My name is Felicity Ezewuike. According to a new UNICEF report, 1 in 3 children, or 739 million worldwide, already live in areas exposed to a high or very high water scarcity, with climate change threatening to make this worse. The report, tagged "The Climate Change Child," released ahead of the COP28 Climate Change Summit, throws a spotlight on the threats to children as a result of water vulnerability, one of the ways in which the impacts of climate change are being felt. Far too many children, 436 million of them, are facing the double burden of high or very high water scarcity and low or very low drinking water service levels, known as extreme water vulnerability, living their lives, health, and well-being at risk. The report states this is one of the key drivers of deaths among children under 5 from preventable diseases. It further highlights that those most affected live in low and middle income countries in sub-Saharan Africa, Central and Southern Asia, and Eastern and Southeastern Asia. Some of the most impacted countries include Niger, Jordan, Burkina Faso, Yemen, Chad, and Namibia, where 8 out of 10 children are exposed. Investment in safe drinking water and sanitation services are an essential first line of defense to protect children from the impact of climate change. So, how do we improve on that? How do we work on the report to ensure children have their rights? My guest is Dr. Gbujie Daniel, Global Health Consultant and former UNICEF Ambassador. He joins me from Massachusetts, USA. Thank you very much for giving us your time.
Thank you for having me.
Can you just help us summarize some of the key findings of the UNICEF report, apart from some of the things I've mentioned regarding specifically severe water scarcity and its impact on children?
Yeah, thank you very much, and thank you for giving me this opportunity. I want to thank Oluwatosin and your management team. You have summarized excellently. You understand the report that was released 4 days ago, if I'm not mistaken. Now, what is key from what you have said and what I think the audience needs to understand is that the world needs to start to get smart on how they deal with water, how they use water, how they harness the power of water. But because our audience are audience that have been through a lot. I'm talking about the African context as a case study, Nigeria. Now, water is a very integral part of our culture in Africa. You know, water can be used to cook, right? Can be used to drink, right? Water also has some traditional responsibility and religious responsibility. So when you start to have scarcity in those things, what does it mean? As a science-minded person, it means that you are going to start to have disruptions in things already that water supports, you know, and that's where education comes in. Now that report is telling us that mankind has not done well for the last 150 years since when industrial revolution have started. And that our actions, you know, distorting the elements, by elements, we mean, you know, earth, fire, water, you know, by distorting, and air, by distorting all those processes, we are creating cataclysmic, so that the Nigerian audience understand, and Africans that are watching us understand, we are creating irreparable damage, you know, to the importance of what water does for ourselves. So that report is saying that we should actually get smart. I recall when I had a discussion with the UNICEF Executive Director, Her Excellency Catherine. She said that the world has to remain smart. And by smart, it means that we need to educate ourselves and have better behavioral practice when we use water. So the lifestyle of wastage must stop. And the truth of the matter is this, that climate change in itself is telling us now that our years of pretending or saying it doesn't exist or in the African context, believing it's a white man's thing, it doesn't hold water again. So if at all Africa must move forward, the report is saying that we must now sit down, reevaluate, and ask ourselves the truth.
Okay.
What we are seeing now in our environment in the last 35 years, outside of our environment in the last 100 years, is it okay? Are we studying the changes that are going on? And I think the report also is very comprehensive, even though the summary is there.
Okay.
So yes, there's water scarcity. The challenge now is that water scarcity can be as a result of environmental shocks.
All right, we'll come to the challenges. We'll come to the challenges in a bit, but I'd like you to, because we're trying to focus on the children, how does severe water scarcity affect the daily lives of children in terms of access to clean drinking water, hygiene and sanitation, and their quality of life generally?
Oh yes, it does. You've forgotten children are human beings too. They live in the environments where disruptions are taking place. And you've forgotten that much of the body mass of young people are primarily water. You understand? So once you starve people of water externally, or make it difficult for people to drink quality water as a result of environmental shock, climate change, flood, or drought, or the risk of it, or failure of government to provide potable water, or failure of government to provide infrastructure, because these are things that are in the report. You understand? Yes, climate change, you understand, causes much of all the problems that takes place. Now, you do understand also that when water is not available, it means the standard of living will become expensive. People have to pay high money to buy good potable water. And those that cannot do that potable water, what do? They go to the dirty water and drink them. And let me explain something that research have shown, that women and children are the ones that go to collect water. So when they arrive at that the pond of water, whether it's contaminated as a result of rainfall that has moved things, or people throwing in plastic, or industrial companies putting in their waste or radioactive material, or biofilms, when children get to use the water, either by bathing, they have skin-related lesions or skin diseases, or they drink it, they could have cholera, they could have typhoid. And another important thing why it impacts on children is that children need the best level of hygiene, right? Water in itself's major role, is to create a clean environment. You use water, and of course, also some agents that have water-related molecules into it. So that's the connection on how it affects children. Children need water to grow. Children and women are actually the primary people who go to collect this water, especially in the context of Africa. And if the water is bad, general welfare and well-being, is disrupted.
All right. The report is presented ahead of the COP28 climate change summit, and it is specifically designed for that summit, for them to take an overview. First, what is the relevance of it being presented at the summit, and what is the connection between severe water scarcity and climate change? Peripherally, we know what the connection is, but why is it so urgent that actions are needed now?
No, that's a very, very, very important question. So the connection, why it is very important, is this. Now, as you've been following the climate change story, many of the leaders have been foot dragging. And people need to know, okay, so what is the consequences of us not taking actions? Now, the consequence of you not taking action to address environmental shocks or environmental challenges are that it will impact on overall health of your children. If you recall, the Sustainable Development Goal, the spirit behind the Sustainable Development Goal is to ensure that we leave something for children that are unborn, and we also leave something for those of us that are currently here. Now, climate change is a threat in itself, like you said in your opening monologue. You understand? It's an existential threat, as agreed by all the world leaders. Goodluck Jonathan agreed on behalf of Nigeria. Obama agreed on behalf of the United States. George Weah agreed on behalf of Liberia. Like that, they all agree that it's a threat. Now, going forward to COPE, COPE is the umbrella body that brings all of us together every year for the last 28 years. Now, in this very COPE, we are supposed to make sweeping decisions, and some of the overbearing evidence that we will be presenting are what the UNICEF has also tabled. There are also other solutions that UNICEF currently are already running, research they're already doing, which I will highlight as we go along in solving the problem. But the significance is that we are now bringing to the forefront that climate change is not just about the flooding. Climate change is creating health-related challenges. And sadly, climate change is now forcing people to move away from their area of comfort to other areas. So we're going to start seeing millions of people. Even the statistics says over 700 million people between now and 2024, if nothing is done in an expanding or global or subnational level, will move away from their places. You recall in Nigeria, last year, there was a rain that a picture went viral of the former president being on a canoe, ferrying him away. You know, you recall again that there were stories during that flood that took place in the South, that a man who had worked for 50 years, had cars, had electronics, you know, had a water level greater than 12 feet, and everything he had labored for 16 years to 20 years was destroyed in a 10 hours quantum of rain. So what the UNICEF report is telling us is that our future are already being threatened. It is unfortunate that we've not been able to achieve sustainable development goal as Africa. None of us, no African nation will meet those goals. And again, we are now threatening the existence of young people. So we have to adapt. We have to mitigate. Which are the solutions? And then we have to be more innovative.
All right, what actions does UNICEF recommend in order to address and, like you said, mitigate the effects of severe water scarcity, particularly on children? And which of them are we currently addressing?
Yes, that's a very good question, and that's the meat of the issue. So in the report, they are telling world leaders now, what we'll be doing is this, that if we're going to address the issue of the threat of water scarcity or reduction of water level table, whether groundwater, whether surface water, or reduction of the quality, you understand, or the quantum, or the availability, we have to do the following things. One, we have to do what we call water behavioral mentality. What it means in fancy word is that we have to change the way we behave with water. We have to understand the value of water. So you cannot just be running your tap forever, whether you are in the city, because it's going to have sweeping impact on every other person. So it's important as much as possible that we identify the value of water. We know fully well where all our water tables are. We treat them well. That's one. Secondly, we need to improve the efficiency. So even if you use water, for example, to bathe, you know, they are telling us that you can also save that water, probably bathe in a basin, in a bigger bowl, bath yourself, and use that same water to flush the toilet. Or you don't use soap like so many people do in some parts of Africa. You bathe yourself and use that water to go and attend to your agricultural field or your arable land. Now that's the principle of water efficiency. Another thing that they are saying now is that it's unfortunate that our leaders do not even budget for water. So water now has to have a legislative backing. Why? Water gives life. A world without water is finished. You can exist without many other things, but without the elements of water, you are nothing. So they are saying that if you know the value of water and the importance of water, all your national planning ministers, national planning experts, your government at local, central, and national level must have special budget for them, especially targeted at children, because children's growth or developmental growth sometimes can be disrupted when they're not properly hydrated. In short, there's a research that calculates that the distance children take to go to get water correlates with poor performances in their school. I will explain. Because it takes 1 to 2 hours for them to go and get water and then return back to make the journey to school. Those things can be tiring. Now, the quality of water they are taking is an issue itself. Now, if it's a girl child, a distance of 1 hour is enough for you to be threatened, is enough for you to be molested, is enough for you to be raped, is enough for you to be attacked by the elements that the society itself has not addressed. So it's a distractionary stuff. So how can you be an excellent student when out of 365 days, you use 250 days to look for water? So that's important. So you have to have a national planning, a budget. You can't be budgeting for cars. You can't be budgeting because cars do not sustain life. It's the truth.
I suspect you're referencing Nigeria with that comment, which is fair enough. We have so many other areas of priority. But let's look at what you've highlighted so far. You've talked about changing of water behavioral mentality, if I got you right, improving water efficiency for the layman, just recycle as much as possible, legislative backing. You also talked about the increased vulnerability of children when they go this distance to get, and then you talked about national budgeting. Of all of these,
yes, sorry, there's another thing I didn't mention. It's called WASH. It's a process. It's very important. It's part of the UNICEF stuff. So WASH is a program that's been existing for some years. It's called water and sanitation and hygiene. So it's a concept that says that there's a better way we can be able to use water. We know that if we use the WASH technique, it's easy to learn. If we educate our people, if we tell our people the importance, if we tell them how to harvest rain in a clean way, which is part of recycling, right? Efficiency, right? If we tell them how to protect the underground water, you know, the aqua recharge stuff. These are technical stuff, but the governments are aware.
Yes, I've heard of WASH as well as a child growing up, to be honest, and it has continued over time. So I want to ask you, of all of these, that's the second part of my question, which of them is actually in the works? What are we currently doing that seems to be working? It connects with my second question, but which of them is working? Are we doing any of these things you've highlighted already?
In all fairness, we were doing that in some previous administration, but you know, as COVID came, things had issues with us. African leaders generally did not have priorities. It shocked them, but the beauty of everything is that there is actually evidence. UNICEF runs this stuff on pilot tests. I'm aware that UNICEF does WASH program in Pakistan. In short, they've gone as far as using solar pumps, you know, to pump water, you understand, from the deepest of all depths, because you need energy to be able to reach and build critical pressure to push the water, you know, up to the surface, you know, to make it cleaner. Because the more deeper the water is under the groundwater table, the relatively better and pure it is.
Can you specify, for instance, maybe a successful initiative or program that has helped, you know, to combat water scarcity, severe water scarcity, and its impact on children? Are there any specific initiatives that are successful? And then what can we learn from it that can be spread across board? Because the reason of my asking you that question is we can't do everything all at once. These suggestions that has been made, but are there some that are working that can be implemented even at the very basic level? Maybe WASH?
Yes, I agree with you. WASH can work very well. WASH is simple, it's easy, you understand, to replicate. You do not need to be a PhD person to teach people how to wash their hands, to teach people how to recycle bait in big bowls, and then recycle the water, to teach people the importance of agriculture, you understand, and how to use the water to make it happen, to educate the girl child on how to carry water. And there's an organization called the Global Water Front. They also have helped in sinking solar guided pumps. I'm aware that Serena Williams too had done something like that. I'm aware about there's this famous YouTube in Africa. He went to Kenya and he's about to sink 100 solar guided pumps, to where the better water level are found. So this project works, but what you said is the key. It requires a holistic effort. It requires everybody coming together. It requires people being sincere. It requires young people, you understand, really.
In the interest of time, I'm sorry to interject. In the interest of time, I have two more questions for you. How can public awareness and advocacy efforts, we know some of that is ongoing already, but how can we improve on them to address the issue?
The strategy first is to understand the value of water. You understand? I'll give an example. It's like a puzzle. If you have a puzzle, it's scattered and you've not arranged it yet, you can't make out what it is, right? Even though oh, this puzzle is forming the head of something, you don't know how the leg is until you have a holistic display of the puzzle, and then you piece them together for it to make sense. So we all have to work together. We all have to be intentional. God is not going to come down and give us good water. We have to be intentional about it. We have to be ethically sound about it. We have to think about the future of the children. And one way we can do this is teaching ourselves how to be conservative, investing in technology now, investing in climate change research, knowing the areas where these flashpoints are, having extra budgetary provisions for water, and also this gives us an opportunity to create jobs. I know you say what jobs? Yes, scarcity can create jobs because scarcity can create innovation. So we can start repairing all the tanks. You recall when we were growing up, there are many tanks, public tanks that are hanging up there, but because government could not provide a lot of water, people started digging their own wells. Government can return back to renovating those tanks, reaching out to international community and saying, don't give us the money. We've identified tanks in strategic places where the vulnerability is more severe.
Because if the money comes in, we just might channel it to something else. So do the work and let us see. I want us to go back quickly to COP28 summit and the need for this report. Despite their unique vulnerabilities, children have been either ignored or largely disregarded in discussions about climate change. And now UNICEF is calling on world leaders and the international community to take critical steps. We're talking about water now, but I want us to expand a little with and for children to secure a livable planet, including elevating children within the final COP28 cover decision and conveying an expert dialogue on children and climate change. My question to you is, how optimistic are you that some gains will be recorded in this regard with UNICEF's call to world leaders?
Oh my God, that question is textbook, because this is what all journalists are asking across the world. And I can sense the frustration. You keep going for these meetings, you keep going for these meetings, and we can't see tangible results. But the truth of the matter is that we don't have any choice right now. You need to understand the premise upon the COP. The COP is the committee of parties. All the 193 leaders have come together and have agreed that there's a problem we have in our environment that is very disruptive. It's threatening life, it's threatening existence of even nations. An entire country like Kiribati will disappear in the next 50 years. They're even buying land. They've already agreed that we are past the tipping point, So, but what is key is is that we need to tell our leaders, or our leaders need to understand the science behind climate change. Our leaders need to understand that the few water you have now, you can make economy out of it. There's a concept called the blue economy. You know, it's not something I can highlight it, but the key is that you can make money using water efficiently to run and even support our children and their schools. Because it is important we do that, you know, if at all we want to make ends meet. Already things are already hard. And the narrative is that it's going to get tougher. And the environment is not waiting for us to band together, to sort out our differences, you know, and to work as one, you know. So to address your question, I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful because, as you said, many young people are doing well. Olumide climate change. He's a Nigerian, he's doing well. Titi Abiaka is a Nigerian, she's doing well. Omobola Eko, she's in Italy, you know, on scholarship, she's doing very great. Daniel Awodnap in Ghana, he's in the United States, they're doing well. We are making stuff, I'm writing articles, I'm publishing articles. You know, we're speaking with the UN, and in all fairness, the UN has created a lot of platform. I recently had a discussion with the newly appointed Assistant Secretary General for Youth Affairs. It's a new office that we have there. Is a colleague, is a doctor himself, too, Dr. Felipe. Dr. Felipe is saying, Daniel, I know fully well that climate change will be a very big thing in Africa. I am willing to work with those of you that are in that space. I'm willing, as a colleague, you know, as a healthcare colleague in the climate space, I'm willing to engage, you know, and then our African Union Youth Envoy.
Obviously, a lot is being done, and a lot more
is being done on our part,
required.
But it requires every other person coming together, because we don't have the mechanisms.
Yeah.
And then there's something everybody is not looking at: the power of technology. Technology is what will get us there quickly.
Okay.
It's not digging wells. It's not building gutters. It's about
I know if I let you have so much more to say, but we're out of time for this conversation. So I'd like to say thank you very much, Dr. Daniel, for speaking with us. We appreciate your time and your insights. All right, we'll go for a short break. And when we come back, we'll be talking about the approved malaria drug for Africa, manufactured right here. Stay with us.